I'm Ethan Mitchell, 35, and my world shattered on a Tuesday when the hospital called about Connor. 10 years of marriage, 5 years raising our daughter Harper together, gone in an instant. When I called my parents, choking back tears to tell them my husband was dead, my mother's response froze my blood. "Oh, honey, we're at Jessica's birthday party right now. It's her 40th once-in-a-lifetime celebration. Can we call you tomorrow?" I never imagined that conversation would set the stage for what happened when they discovered Connor's inheritance. If you're watching this from somewhere in your life where family has let you down, let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Like and subscribe if you want to hear how my 8-year-old daughter turned the tables on my greedy family. I grew up in a typical suburban neighborhood outside Boston. My parents, Richard and Margaret Mitchell, had what they considered the perfect American family: a successful father, a stay-at-home mom, 2 kids with straight A's, and a golden retriever named Duke. My sister, Jessica, was always the golden child, homecoming queen, valedictorian, married her high school sweetheart Kevin, and gave them 2 perfect grandchildren. I was the family architect, literally. I studied at MIT, established my own firm by 30, and designed award-winning, sustainable buildings across New England. Then I met Connor Walsh at a charity gala 12 years ago. I was there representing my firm, which had donated design services for a new community center. Connor was there supporting his consulting company's table. He had this way of commanding attention without demanding it, tall, with salt and pepper hair despite only being 33 at the time, laughing eyes, and a smile that made the room tilt slightly when he directed it at you. "That sustainable heating system you designed for the community center is brilliant," he said, approaching me at the bar. "You just saved them about $30,000 annually in operating costs." I was surprised. Most people at these events just compliment the aesthetics. "I'm not most people," he replied with that smile. I actually read the technical specifications in the brochure. We talked until the event staff started breaking down tables. 3 dates later, I knew he was it for me. 10 months after that, we were married in a small ceremony in Provincetown. My parents attended but left immediately after the reception dinner. Jessica came solo, claiming Kevin needed to stay home with the kids. Connor had built his consulting business from scratch, specializing in helping struggling companies restructure and become profitable again. He was brilliant with numbers, investments, and seeing potential where others saw failure. We complemented each other perfectly. I created spaces, he created opportunities. When we decided to adopt, Connor threw himself into the process with the same dedication he gave everything. "Our child deserves nothing less than our absolute best," he'd say. After 2 years of paperwork, interviews, and heart-wrenching near matches, we met 3-year-old Harper. She had Connor's serious expression when concentrating and somehow my habit of wrinkling her nose when thinking hard. It was like she was always meant to be ours. Our home in Brooklyn was my design, open and light-filled, with Harper's art studio adjacent to Connor's office so they could work together, but separate, as Harper put it. Connor's parents, Elaine and Thomas, visited monthly from Rhode Island, bringing homemade cookies and endless affection for Harper. They never once made me feel anything less than their son. My own family was more complicated. When I came out in college, my father didn't speak to me for 6 months. My mother cried about never having grandchildren from me, despite Jessica already being pregnant with her first. When I brought Connor home for the first time, my father asked about his intentions, as if we were in some Victorian novel and he was protecting my virtue. "Your parents are operating from outdated programming," Connor said afterward as we drove home, "but that doesn't mean you have to keep running their software. You can establish boundaries." With Connor's support, I did exactly that. We saw my family on major holidays, occasional birthdays, and maintained polite but distant relationships. Connor was unfailingly cordial despite their thinly veiled discomfort. Harper became their unexpected soft spot. Even my father couldn't resist her when she climbed into his lap with a book about dinosaurs and demanded he read it with the voices. Our life together was beautiful. Spring breaks in national parks where Harper collected rocks that spoke to her, summers at a lake house Connor bought and I renovated, Christmas traditions including matching pajamas and midnight hot chocolate, Connor teaching Harper to play chess while I taught her watercolor techniques, a family bound by choice, intention, and love. Last winter, Connor started experiencing headaches. Just stress, he insisted, popping ibuprofen and returning to his spreadsheets. When I finally insisted on a doctor's visit, they found nothing concerning. His blood pressure was slightly elevated. Watch your salt intake, get more exercise, the doctor said. The headaches continued intermittently, so Connor started swimming laps at our community pool 3 times weekly. The headaches seemed less frequent, and we all relaxed. I'm thinking of taking Harper to Disney World this summer, Connor mentioned one night as we did the dishes together. She's the perfect age for it. Planning a trip without the family architect, I teased. He kissed my cheek. You can design the perfect itinerary to minimize walking. I know how much you hate the Florida heat. That was Connor, always thinking 3 steps ahead, always considering what would make everyone happiest. None of us knew those Disney plans would never materialize. None of us knew our perfect life was balanced on the edge of a precipice. Tuesday started like any ordinary day. Connor made breakfast, blueberry pancakes shaped like seahorses, for Harper. I rushed to finish presentation boards for a client meeting. Harper deliberated between her purple sneakers and red boots. The red boots, Connor advised solemnly. Definitely a red boots kind of day. He kissed me goodbye at the door, Harper's backpack in one hand, his laptop bag in the other. Love you, architect, see you for dinner. Love you too, I replied, distracted by a rendering that wasn't loading properly. That was our last conversation. At 2:17 p.m., my phone rang with a number from Massachusetts General Hospital. Connor had collapsed during a client meeting. The words brain aneurysm and critical condition bounced off me like they were speaking a foreign language. I don't remember the drive to the hospital. I remember calling Connor's parents, who immediately said they'd be on the road within the hour. I remember arranging for our neighbor Diane to pick up Harper from school. I don't remember parking or entering the hospital or speaking to the first doctor. I do remember the neurosurgeon's face, young, but with ancient, sorrowful eyes. The aneurysm was catastrophic, Mr. Mitchell, he said. We're doing everything possible, but I need to prepare you for the likelihood that your husband won't survive this. But he's only 45, I said stupidly, as if age granted immunity. I'm sorry, he replied. Sometimes these weaknesses in blood vessels exist from birth, completely asymptomatic until they rupture. They let me see him, Connor, surrounded by machines, his head wrapped in bandages, his strong hands limp at his sides. I held those hands and whispered everything I could think of, memories, promises, please. At 5:43 p.m., Connor's brain activity ceased entirely. The official time of death was recorded as 5:51 p.m. I sat in the hallway afterward, unable to move, unable to process. A nurse brought me water. Someone asked about funeral homes. Connor's phone kept ringing in the plastic belongings bag they'd given me. I needed to call my parents, despite our complicated relationship, despite everything, in that moment of absolute devastation, I needed my family. My mother answered on the 4th ring, the sound of laughter and music in the background. Mom, I managed, my voice breaking, Connor died. He had a brain aneurysm, Anne. Oh honey, she interrupted, we're at Jessica's birthday party right now. It's her 40th once-in-a-lifetime celebration. Can we call you tomorrow? The background noise continued unabated. Someone shouted, "Speech." My father's voice came on the line briefly. "Bad timing, son. We've got 40 people here. Jessica's about to blow out her candles." "My husband just died," I repeated, wondering if they hadn't heard me. "That's terrible," my mother said, sounding distracted. "We'll try to visit when things settle down here. Jessica planned this party for months, you know?" They hung up before I could respond. I sat in stunned silence until Connor's parents arrived, their faces ravaged with grief. Elaine took one look at me and enveloped me in her arms. Thomas placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "We're here," Elaine said simply. "We're here." Telling Harper was the hardest thing I've ever done. We waited until morning, letting her have one last peaceful night of sleep. Connor's parents and I sat together at our kitchen table, planning how to explain death to an 8-year-old. "Daddy Connor went to heaven today," I told her, using a concept her school friends understood. "His brain got very sick very suddenly, and the doctors couldn't fix it." Her small face crumpled in slow motion. "But he was going to take me to Disney World," she said. "I know, baby," I whispered, pulling her into my lap. "Can I still talk to him?" Elaine knelt beside her. "Whenever you see something beautiful, like a perfect seashell or a really good seahorse pancake, that's Daddy Connor saying hello." Harper nodded solemnly, tears streaming down her face. "Does your heart feel like mine, like someone squeezing it too hard?" I kissed her hair. "Yes. Exactly like that." The next days passed in a blur. Connor's family held me up, mine held nothing, not even a call. And maybe that was the moment my own daughter taught me an even greater lesson: we choose who shows up for us. My phone lit up with a message from Grandma Eleanor. "Remember, my brave girl, diamonds are made under pressure. You're already shining." I stared at those words for a long time. Then I wiped my tears, grabbed a notebook, and mapped out a daily schedule: every hour, every minute, classes, work shifts, study sessions, meals. There wouldn't be much sleep, no time for parties or socializing, but I would make it work. That first week on campus, the financial aid office became my second home. Miss Winters, the assistant director, sat me down after hearing my story. "You're taking on a lot," she said seriously, "but I've seen students like you make it. Promise me you'll come talk to me before it gets overwhelming." That promise saved me more times than I could count. The day before classes started, I got a call from Mrs. Chen. "We scraped together one more small scholarship," she said. "The teachers pitched in. It's only $1,000, but we all believe in you, Emma." I stared at the check and burst into tears, not because of the money, but because someone finally saw me. Someone finally said, "You matter." And that was the final push I needed. I was going to do this no matter what. Freshman year hit me like a tidal wave. While most students were figuring out parties or balancing Netflix with studying, I worked 2 jobs, lived off instant noodles, and stretched every dollar like elastic. My day started at 5 a.m. with a study session. Then I opened the coffee shop at 6:30, rushed to classes, taking notes like my life depended on it, then clocked into my second job at the bookstore by 5 p.m. By the time I got home, it was usually past midnight. Sleep became optional. I learned to speed read on bus rides, listen to recorded lectures while mopping floors, and squeeze in homework during slow customer hours. Every second had a purpose. I didn't have the luxury of wasting time, not when every paycheck, every grade, every completed assignment meant one step closer to surviving the semester. Meanwhile, Lily lived the full college fantasy. Through texts and social media, I saw glimpses of her life, sorority mixers, weekends back home, study abroad meetings, brunches with friends. It was like we were in two completely different worlds, even though we attended the same university. There were nights I saw her tagged in party photos while I sat at my kitchen table, doing homework by a broken lamp with a cup of stale coffee. Yeah, I was bitter, no shame in admitting it, but then something amazing happened. I started crushing it in my business classes. While other students struggled with accounting concepts or marketing principles, I was already living them. Budgeting was my daily reality just to make rent. Time management was a master's degree I earned before stepping on campus. One day, Professor Bennett, my business ethics professor, stopped me after class. "Ms. Wilson, your analysis of that resource allocation case study was exceptional. You've got a unique perspective, mature, lived." That compliment meant more than she knew, because for the first time in a long time, I felt like my struggles were giving me an edge. Around that time, I met my lifeline, my roommate Zoe. Quiet at first, always with headphones, always cooking something amazing that made our apartment smell like heaven, she must have noticed how little I ate and how exhausted I looked. One night, she left a Tupperware container with my name on it in the fridge. I came home after a 12-hour day, opened the fridge, and found real food, pasta, vegetables, and a note that simply said, "Eat this, then sleep." I almost cried. That kind of kindness, when you're hanging on by a thread, is everything. Eventually, Zoe and I grew close. One night, I came home looking like I'd been run over by midterms. She sat me down. "You can't keep doing this to yourself," she said firmly, handing me a cup of tea. "You're going to burn out." When I told her about the loans, the jobs, the lack of parental help, she just stared. "That's beyond unfair," she said. "From now on, you've got a new college family, me." And she meant it. Zoe became my rock. She made sure I ate, helped me edit papers when I was too tired to form coherent sentences, even asked other roommates to keep it down when I needed quiet to study. "Family looks out for each other," she said. "Sometimes the family you choose is better than the one you're born into." Fast forward to sophomore year, and things got even more intense. The coffee shop slashed hours, seasonal slowdown, they said, and just like that, 40% of my income vanished. Rent was due, tuition payments were coming. Panic rose like an unstoppable tide. I remembered Ms. Winters and practically sprinted to her office, pouring out my situation in every painful detail. She nodded, sifted through my file, and then said something that gave me real hope. "You qualify for an emergency grant, and Professor Bennett recommended you for a research assistant role. It pays better than the coffee shop and offers flexible hours." That job changed everything. Working with Professor Bennett on small business resilience during economic downturns was intellectually stimulating, and it felt like more than survival, it was building something. One afternoon, she asked, "Have you considered starting your own business, Emma? Your ideas on innovation under pressure are advanced." That question planted a seed buried since high school. That night, I pulled out old notes, competition ideas, sketches, plans. What if I launched something now, while in college? I used what I was learning in class and at work to create an online platform offering virtual assistant services to local businesses. I built a website, crafted service packages, and emailed every small company I could find. 2 weeks later, the first client came in, then another, then a third. By junior year, my side hustle made more than my bookstore job. I kept the research assistant role for mentorship, but I quit the bookstore. Every dollar from my business went toward tuition, rent, and groceries. Loans still loomed, but the weight on my shoulders lightened. And something else happened. I started raising my hand in class, sharing insights from real-life experience. Professors noticed, students asked me for project help. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible, I felt seen. By the end of junior year, my digital assistant business was real, not just a hustle to cover bills but a legitimate operation. I had steady clients, local businesses needing help with scheduling, emails, social media. I hired 2 classmates for my marketing seminar, paid them well, trained them myself, and watched my little venture grow. My apartment was still messy most days, and I still lived off ramen more than I wanted, but I was building something no one, especially not my parents, could take credit for. I'll never forget the day Professor Bennett pulled me aside. "Emma," she said in that no-nonsense tone, "I've nominated you for the Entrepreneurial Excellence Scholarship. It's full tuition for your senior year, based on everything you've built and your grades. You've earned it." A few weeks later, I got the letter, "Zero balance for senior year." I reread that email 5 times, not just for the numbers but because it meant something deeper. I'd made it to my final year. Debt was manageable, my business thrived, and I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. Meanwhile, Lily, whom I barely saw except in a group chat or Instagram story, was starting to wobble. The golden child, she faced her senior thesis and fell apart. One evening, I came home from the coffee shop to find her at my door, makeup smudged, laptop in one hand, half-finished papers in the other. "I'm failing my senior seminar," she blurted. "My research is a disaster. I don't know where to start. Emma, I need help." I stared. Part of me wanted to shut the door, let her figure it out the way I did, no favors, just grit. But I didn't. She was my sister, and she was drowning. So I opened the door wider. "Come in." That night began many more. We structured her argument, organized citations, built methodology. She was smart, she just never had to push herself before. For the first time, we really talked. "How do you do it?" she asked one night, eyes wide as I rewrote her thesis outline. "Do what?" "All of it, the business, the grades, the jobs. I can barely keep up with my classes, and I have support." I hesitated, then told her, "I wake up before sunrise, work weekends, skip meals to buy textbooks, and I've spent 4 years proving myself to people who never asked what I was capable of." Lily stared, guilt plain on her face. "I had no idea," she whispered. "Mom and Dad always said you were doing fine." "Fine is relative," I said. "I've worked 60-hour weeks with straight A's. I built a company to keep from drowning in loans. None of that made me worth their support by default." It wasn't anger, just honesty, and it changed us. Lily became my ally, not just the golden sister. She refused fancy gifts from home, insisted on learning on her own, even offered to cover groceries when she saw my budgeting. By January, we met weekly to study and catch up, and her thesis got back on track. I opened my coat, slid the paper inside, folded it, creased it down the center, until it stopped. "That's not theft?" he asked. "No," I said. "That's reclamation." There was a long silence. Then he spoke again, voice softer. "You know what scares me? Not what you did, but that I didn't ask. I let them change your name on paper, like that would soften your past, and you let it happen." "No," I said. "I let you happen." He looked like I'd slapped him. Slowly, he walked to a drawer and pulled out a small folder. "They wanted me to sign off on a photo for the mayor's wall, your deployment ceremony." "I didn't," I said, "but I kept this." He handed it to me. Inside was a print, me, bloodied but upright, flag patch torn, cradling a child in my arms amid rubble. My helmet hung loose, my eyes scanned the horizon. You looked like someone worth trusting, he said, even if I didn't know how. I slid the photo behind the altered certificate. If you ever want to tell the full story, I said, start with that one. I walked out before he could answer. Outside, Lena was sketching a dragon in front of a bookstore. It's breathing fire, she said proudly, into the sky, not at anyone. Why not at someone? I asked. Because sometimes you just want to be seen, she said. I ruffled her curls. Let's go. As we drove away, I didn't look back. Some buildings don't deserve second glances, and some legacies don't belong in frames, they belong in the hands of the ones who lived them. As I tucked the folded frame into my coat, a wind chime caught a sudden breeze. It sounded thin and brittle, like laughter that didn't quite reach the eyes. I turned once more to scan the back office. The same cracked mug sat on the desk, world's okayest dad, still visible beneath a coffee ring. A bitter smile flickered across my lips. I remembered the first time I'd stood in this office with scraped knees and a perfect spelling test, hoping he'd look up from his ledger and say something, anything. He hadn't. You know, he said quietly behind me, when you were little, you used to arrange the books by color. Took you hours. Customers hated it, but you let me. I let you because it was quiet, I said. You didn't ask for much. No, I replied. I learned early not to. He exhaled a soft sound, like something collapsing. You were always the brave one. I turned to face him fully. Then why didn't you say that ever? He looked away. It scared me, what you became, the risks, the danger. I didn't know how to be proud without being afraid. I let that sit in the air, heavy and unfixable. That's not how pride works, I said finally. You feel it anyway, or you don't. He nodded slowly, not in agreement, just acknowledgement. Outside, Lena held up her dragon sketch. It's got medals now, she said. Because it's a hero. I looked at the wing she'd drawn, wide and fierce. You gave it stars. She nodded. It earned them. I buckled her into the truck and climbed in. For a long time I didn't start the engine. I just sat there, watching the bookstore through the windshield, its painted sign faded to the color of memory. What's wrong? Lena asked softly. Nothing, I said. Just wondering how long it takes a place to notice it's missing something important. She leaned her head against the seat. Maybe it never notices, but that doesn't mean you put it back. I looked at her, really looked. Her hand still smudged with crayon, her eyes too wise for 9. You're smarter than I was at your age, she said. Maybe, I said. But you were stronger, she corrected gently. I'm still here, she smiled. Then let's go be here somewhere better. I turned the key, the engine started, and we left that bookstore behind like a chapter that had nothing left to teach. In a Verstead, the past doesn't stay shelved, especially not when it can be curated for charity. 2 days later, an envelope arrived at our motel, heavy stock, embossed seal, no return address. Inside was an invitation to the Isabel Rowe Foundation annual gala, a fundraiser. A photo of Isabel in a velvet gown, the tagline, Celebrating Women of Grace, and, in smaller print, Family encouraged to attend. Lena read it before I could tuck it away. Is she the one with the shiny shoes? She asked. Yes, I said. Are we going? I paused. The answer should have been no, but then Lena whispered, it says family, and for her sake, I couldn't pretend the word had lost all meaning. The country club wore wealth-like costume jewelry, obvious, overdone, slightly tarnished. Valets avoided eye contact. The host scanned the list and offered a clipped smile. Ah, General Rowe and guest, daughter? I corrected him. She's my daughter. He handed us the seating card without apology. Table 17, near the restrooms, between swinging doors and strategic obscurity. Lena squeezed my hand. This table smells like lemon cleaner. That's how they scrub out discomfort, I muttered. From our vantage point, we could see the back of the stage and the backs of heads. Center spotlight, Isabel in silver chiffon, backlit like a beatified martyr. The screen behind her played a highlight reel of rescued women smiling, interns, ribbon cuttings, not one mention of Kabul, Kandahar, or me. Then the MC, polished and saccharine, stepped up. Isabel Rowe is more than a philanthropist, she's the embodiment of grace, reborn from family shadows. Applause. She's turned a complicated name into a crown of courage. Another round of clapping. Lena leaned in. That's a lot of talking for not saying anything. That's politics, I said. You bury truth under polish. Dessert arrived, a dollop of lemon foam and a raspberry. I excused myself, old instincts rising. I didn't look like a threat in a cocktail dress, but I was one. Behind the stage, velvet curtains hung like secrets. I moved silently, breath measured, then heard voices. She brought the kid, let her. It makes her look unhinged, like she's chasing relevance. You think she'll speak? If she does, we have the letter, Kandahar, her signature on it. My blood iced. My letter. One leaked to the right outlet, and she's not a hero, she's an unhinged officer who disobeyed chain of command. Frame it right, she's a liability, not a legacy. Something heavy pressed into my chest. My hand shook, not with fear, but with fury. I stepped back into shadow, leaned against a utility closet, trying to slow my breath. It wasn't the letter that threatened me, it was their version of it. Back at the table, Lena had drawn a new picture, a ballroom swallowed by a dragon's flame. That's you, she said. You're the fire, I'm the wings. I almost laughed, almost cried. Good. Stay close, we fly soon. We didn't stay for the closing speech. On the way out, a young assistant offered a glossy gift bag. I looked inside, lipstick, a donation form, and a card that read, "Thank you for supporting women who rise." I left it on the nearest table. We had already risen, without their permission. Outside, the night was cool, the stars unbothered by the pretenses inside. Are we in trouble? Lena asked. No, I said, but they might be. Why? Because they forgot the most dangerous person in any war. I looked down at her, smiled. Is the one who knows how the story really ends. Behind us, somewhere inside that golden cage, a curtain stirred, and a carefully constructed legacy took its first invisible crack. 2 days later, Lena and I walked downtown, past the post office and the bakery with the crooked welcome mat, toward a shopfront I hadn't noticed before. The windows gleamed with curated reverence, gold trim, soft lighting, and a sign etched in cursive script. The Isabel Rowe Center for Women's Empowerment. Lena tugged at my sleeve. Look, she said, pointing at the glass. That's your medal. I froze. There, framed behind the spotless pane, was a replica of the Silver Valor Cross, my Silver Valor Cross, except it wasn't labeled mine. The placard beneath read, in honor of heroic service abroad. Donated by the Rowe family to inspire future leaders. No name. No unit. No truth, just a hollow symbol neatly staged for photo ops and board meetings. I stared at it for a long moment. Is that yours? Lena asked softly. It was, I said, but now it's been repurposed, scrubbed of blood and story, polished into palatability. Next to the medal was a looping video. Isabel shaking hands with senators, smiling at ribbon cuttings, holding toddlers in disaster zones she'd never set foot in. A voiceover narrated in syrupy tones. At the heart of courage lies compassion, and no one exemplifies this more than Isabel Rowe. My stomach turned. She hadn't just borrowed my bloodline, she'd borrowed my battlefield. I stepped closer to the glass. My reflection merged with the metal. For a second, it looked like I was wearing it again, but it didn't feel like honor. It felt like erasure. "Can we go inside?" Lena asked. I hesitated, then nodded. A receptionist greeted us with forced warmth, trained to scan for donations, not dignity. The lobby smelled like new paint and lavender. We wandered through the exhibit hall, a curated maze of plaques, portraits, and soft lighting. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the denial, the discomfort, the desperate grasp for control. "I haven't been hiding anything," I said calmly. "You just weren't paying attention." There was a long pause. Lily joined me, wrapping her arm around my shoulders. Her voice was louder than usual, loud enough that nearby families could hear. "Everyone's been talking about Emma's speech," she said proudly. "It's amazing what she managed to accomplish without any support. I wonder how much more she could have done if she had the same resources I did." Our mother flinched visibly, the words hitting harder than a scream from behind them. Uncle Jack and Aunt Susan exchanged glances. I could feel the weight of judgment shifting in the room, not toward me, but toward them, toward the parents who'd ignored, dismissed, underestimated. Dad cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should talk more at the house," he muttered. "Actually," I said, "I have a celebration with my business team and my professors this afternoon, the people who actually supported me through college." That hit hard. Before they could say anything else, Grandma Eleanor stepped in and took my hand. "I'm coming with you," she declared. "I want to meet the people who believed in my granddaughter when her own parents didn't." The sentence landed like a thunderclap. Mom opened her mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to protest, but nothing came out. Then Lily spoke up. "I'm coming, too." She stepped away from them and toward us. I turned. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I want to be with the people who saw your worth." Just like that, the three of us, my grandmother, my sister, and I, walked away, leaving behind the people who had failed to see the value standing in front of them all along. We didn't look back at the business school reception. Everything was different, light, joyful, full of laughter and pride. Faculty came up one after the other, congratulating me, asking about my plans, thanking me for what I'd shared. Zoe found us and immediately wrapped me in a giant hug. "You did it," she whispered in my ear. "You freaking did it." "I had help," I said, glancing at her, then at Grandma and Lily. I introduced them both to every professor, every mentor, every classmate who'd stood by me over the last 4 years. Professor Bennett gave me the biggest surprise. "We've received an inquiry from Business Innovation magazine," she said. "They want to feature your story, and they asked for a photo with your family." My heart stopped for half a second. "They mean my actual family, right?" She smiled knowingly. "Yes, the one that believed in you." We posed together, me in the center, Grandma Eleanor on one side, Lily on the other, all three of us beaming. Later that evening, I got a text from Mom, "Family dinner at the rental house, hope you'll join. We want to celebrate you, too." I showed the message to Lily and Grandma. "What do you think?" I asked. Grandma raised an eyebrow. "Bit late to start acting proud, don't you think?" Lily shrugged. "Maybe. But I do want to see Uncle Jack roast them again." We all laughed, and for the first time in a long time, I laughed without bitterness. I was proud of what I'd done, of who I'd become, not in spite of my family, but because I had learned to become my own biggest believer. Whatever happened next, it wouldn't change that. That evening, we pulled up to the rental house my parents had booked for the weekend. It looked just like the kind of place they loved: immaculate landscaping, upscale furniture, a showpiece for appearances. It screamed success, just not the kind they'd expected to be celebrating. As we walked in, me, Lily, and Grandma, conversations hushed, then, like someone hit play on the room, people started coming over. Cousins I barely spoke to hugged me. Aunts and uncles offered congratulations. Even distant relatives whose names I could barely recall handed me business cards. "Your speech was unforgettable," one of them said. "My daughter's a freshman here. I hope she hears your story." I thanked them, but part of me couldn't ignore the stares across the room. My parents stood there, watching everything unfold, clearly unprepared for how much had shifted in just one day. Mom emerged from the kitchen, wearing her best hostess smile, but her eyes looked uncertain. "Emma, you came," she said, voice a bit too high, too rehearsed. "We're just about to serve dinner." Dad followed with his usual boisterous tone, always a mask. "There's my successful daughter," he said loudly enough for the whole room to hear. "Emma, why didn't you tell us about your job at Alexander Global?" The question landed like a joke without a punchline. I looked at him and replied evenly, "Maybe because you never asked." There was a brief silence, not dramatic, just revealing, the kind of silence where people start to question what they've always believed. Uncle Jack chimed in before the tension could break. "Probably because you haven't asked about her once in 4 years, Robert," he said, casually sipping his drink, "at least not at any dinner I've been at." Dad's face flushed. "That's not fair. We've always supported both our girls." Financially, Aunt Susan continued. "Because the university president was pretty clear about Emma putting herself through school." Mom jumped in quickly. "We had limited resources. We made hard choices." Grandma Eleanor stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Emma didn't choose independence. She accepted it because you left her no other option. Let's not rewrite history now that the cameras are pointing her way." That stopped them cold. Then everything shifted when Lily stepped forward. "Mom, Dad, I think it's time we just say the truth." Her voice wasn't angry, it was steady, almost gentle. "You favored me. You gave me everything. You assumed Emma didn't need support just because she didn't complain, and you were wrong." The room was so still you could hear a pin drop. "I didn't even know half of what she'd been through until this year, and I was living 10 minutes away from her," Lily continued. "You made her fight for everything on her own while I coasted." Tears welled in Mom's eyes, guilt or shame, I couldn't tell. "We never meant to," she whispered. "We just thought Emma was doing fine." I stepped in. "Intentions don't erase impact. You made a choice, and that choice made my path harder than it needed to be." Dad's voice cracked slightly. "We were trying to do what we thought was best, and what you thought was best," he said, "was betting on the daughter who fit your idea of success, not the one building it from scratch." It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like truth, and for the first time in my life, I spoke without rage or tears, just clarity. Dinner continued, but the energy was different now. People saw me not as Emma who works too much or Emma who keeps her head down, but as Emma, the one who built an empire in silence. Cousins asked about my business model. Aunt Susan asked if I'd mentor her daughter. Even grandparents who'd never known what I did said they were proud. Every time someone said, "You're so impressive," I watched my parents shrink, realizing the daughter they doubted had become the person others admired most. Toward the end of the evening, after cake and quiet conversations, my father approached me near the back deck, away from the crowd. "We've been talking," he said, voice lower, more measured. "We'd like to help with the deposit on an apartment near your new job. Consider it a graduation gift." The offer was well-meaning but far too little, way too late. "I appreciate that," I replied politely, "but I don't need it. My starting salary is $90,000, plus bonuses. My housing is already squared away." He blinked like he'd misheard. 90,000? I'd never said it out loud to them before. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. He looked stunned. "You don't need to say anything," I cut in gently. "You don't owe me now. You owed me then. I'm okay without it. I always was." He nodded once. That was the closest to an apology I was going to get from him. On our way out, Lily turned to me. "Grandma and I are doing a little weekend at the lake house before I move to my new place. You should come." Her eyes were warm, real, just us three. A reset, like a family vacation with the actual family. "I'd love that," I said without hesitation. As we walked toward the car, me, Lily, and Grandma, I took one last glance back at the rental house. My parents stood near the doorway, still surrounded by guests but noticeably alone. Their carefully curated narrative was crumbling, and they knew it. The story they'd always told about the perfect daughter, the safe investment, had been rewritten publicly and irrevocably, and I hadn't needed their help to do it. The next morning, we were back at Grandma Eleanor's lake house, the place that had been my escape for so many years. But this time it didn't feel like I was running away, it felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The three of us, me, Lily, and Grandma, sat on the back porch, sipping coffee and watching the early morning fog lift off the lake. It was quiet, peaceful, no tension, no passive-aggressive silences, no pretending. Lily leaned back in her chair, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "I still can't believe yesterday," she said, half laughing. "You got a scholarship named after you, a scholarship, Emma, at our university." I smiled, though it still felt surreal. It still feels like I'm living in two versions of reality, one where I was invisible and one where people finally saw me. "They didn't just see you," Grandma said. "They stood for you, the entire room." That's what had truly changed. I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Over the next few days, something shifted even more deeply between Lily and me. We weren't just sisters in proximity, we were rebuilding something that had been missing our whole lives. We cooked dinner together, learning each other's rhythms from scratch. We went through old family photo albums, laughing at our horrible haircuts and awkward phases. When Lily finally cried, really cried, about how much guilt she felt for not seeing what I'd been through, I held her hand and said, "You weren't supposed to know. They kept you in the light and kept me in the shadows. That wasn't your fault." "Me understand the investment portfolio Connor had built," she said, patiently explaining concepts Connor had managed seamlessly. "He talked about you and Harper constantly. Simon told me during one of our meetings, every investment decision was made with your future security in mind." With this growing circle of support, we established new routines: Sunday dinners with Michael and Laura, monthly weekend visits from Connor's parents, weekly therapy sessions. Harper started a kindness project at school in Connor's memory, organizing classmates to write cards for children in the hospital where Connor had once volunteered. At home, we created a Connor corner in the living room, a small table with his photo, a chess night, his favorite books, and rotating mementos that reminded us of him. Harper would sometimes sit there when she missed him especially badly, talking to his picture about her day. The first holiday season without Connor loomed like a mountain on our calendar. Thanksgiving had been his favorite. He'd cook for days, insisting on homemade everything from bread to cranberry sauce. What should we do? I asked Harper as November approached. We could try something completely different this year if traditional Thanksgiving feels too hard, she considered seriously. I think Daddy Connor would want us to keep his recipes, she decided, but maybe we could invite different people, like a new tradition inside the old one. We ended up hosting Michael and Laura, Connor's parents, his business partner Simon and his wife, and Dr. Winters and her wife. Each guest brought something meaningful, a dish Connor had loved, a story about him, a new tradition to incorporate. We cried, but we also laughed, sharing memories that kept him present among us. Christmas presented different challenges. Connor had always orchestrated an elaborate Christmas morning treasure hunt, with clues leading Harper to her presents. The thought of attempting it without him overwhelmed me. I can't do it like he did, I confessed to Harper. I don't have his cleverness with the rhyming clues. We could do something different, Harper suggested. Maybe instead of finding presents, we could find memories, like clues that lead to places in the house where we have good memories of Daddy Connor that Christmas morning. Harper followed handwritten clues throughout our home, each leading to a place where a special memory with Connor had occurred. At each spot she found a small ornament representing that memory, a tiny chess piece for the corner where he taught her to play, a miniature paintbrush for the sunroom where they did art projects, a little cookbook for the kitchen where they made pancakes. By the end she had collected 12 ornaments for a special memory tree set up alongside our main Christmas tree. It's like having pieces of him to keep, she said, hanging the last ornament. As December turned to January, we approached the 1-year mark of Connor's death. Harper still had nightmares occasionally, crawling into my bed seeking comfort. I wasn't always sure how to provide it. I still found myself reaching for my phone to text Connor about something before reality crashed back, but increasingly these moments came alongside periods of normalcy, even occasional joy. One evening in late January, Harper found me looking through our financial documents, trying to organize everything according to Maxwell's recommendations. Are we poor now that Daddy Connor is gone? She asked bluntly. No, sweetheart. Connor made sure we'd always be financially secure. She nodded thoughtfully. That's good. But I was thinking about the money in my trust thing. What about using some of it to help other kids, like kids whose parents died but didn't have money like Daddy Connor did? I looked at my daughter, amazed yet again by her heart. I think that's a wonderful idea. We could start a foundation in Daddy Connor's name. Her face lit up. Yes. The Connor Walsh Foundation for Kids Without Dads, or something shorter. The idea took root and blossomed. Working with Maxwell, we established a foundation that would provide financial support for grief counseling and educational expenses for children who had lost parents. Harper insisted on being involved in every step, from choosing the foundation's name, the Connor Walsh Lighthouse Foundation, because he helped people find their way, to designing the logo, a chess knight incorporated into a lighthouse beam. As we approached the 1-year anniversary of Connor's death, I realized how much our landscape had changed. Our family had contracted and expanded simultaneously, losing my parents and sister, but gaining deeper connections with Connor's parents, his friends, and new supportive presences in our lives. The pain remained, but it no longer defined every moment. We had built something new around the Connor-shaped hole in our lives, not filling it, but acknowledging it as part of our geography rather than an all-consuming abyss. We're going to be okay, I told Harper one night as I tucked her in. Different, but okay, she nodded, wise beyond her years. Daddy Connor would be proud of our night moves. 6 months after the will-reading confrontation, an unexpected letter arrived in our mailbox, handwritten on Jessica's personalized stationery. Unlike the terse text message exchanged months earlier, this was several pages of thoughtful reflection. Dear Ethan, I've started this letter at least a dozen times over the past months. Nothing I write seems adequate, but my therapist, yes, I finally started therapy, says perfect is the enemy of good, so I'm pushing forward, imperfectly. First, I want to acknowledge the depth of your loss. Connor wasn't just your husband, he was your partner in every sense of the word. He was Harper's father in all the ways that truly matter. No apology can touch the pain of losing him, especially at such a young age and so suddenly. Second, I want to take full responsibility for my inexcusable behavior. There's no justification for prioritizing my birthday over supporting you during the worst moment of your life, none. I've spent months examining why I reacted that way and, while the reasons help me understand my behavior, they don't excuse it. The truth is, I've always been jealous of what you and Connor had, not the material things, though I know that's how it came across. I was jealous of your relationship, the deep respect, the partnership, the unconditional support. Kevin and I have struggled for years. My perfect-looking marriage has been falling apart behind closed doors. Watching you and Connor always felt like looking at what I was missing. That doesn't justify my actions, nothing does, but I want you to know I'm working on myself. Kevin and I are in couples counseling. I've distanced myself from Mom and Dad's toxic attitudes. I'm trying to become someone who deserves to be in Harper's life, even if that never happens. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not even asking for it right now. I just wanted you to know that Harper's brave stand that day changed something in me. Out of the mouth of babes, right? With love and profound regret. Jessica. I read the letter several times, emotions shifting with each reading, skepticism, anger, cautious hope, uncertainty. I shared it with Dr. Bennett in our next session. What are you feeling about this? He asked after reading it. Conflicted, I admitted. Part of me wants to believe she's sincere, another part feels this could be another manipulation, softer, more sophisticated, but still aimed at accessing Connor's money eventually. Those are valid concerns, given your history, he said. What would make you feel comfortable moving forward? I considered this carefully, time, consistency, actions rather than words. I drafted a brief response to Jessica, acknowledging her letter and suggesting that healing would require patience and demonstrated change over time. To my surprise, she respected this boundary, sending only occasional texts updating her therapy progress, articles about grief she thought might help, never pushing for more engagement than I offered. When I mentioned the exchange to Harper during one of our weekly family meetings, a tradition we'd established to discuss important matters openly, she considered it with characteristic thoughtfulness. Maybe we could have lunch with Aunt Jessica, she suggested. Just her, not Grandma and Grandpa, to see if she means it. Are you sure? I asked. You don't have to see her if you're not comfortable. Harper shrugged. Daddy Connor said, everyone deserves a second chance if they're really trying to change, but not a third or fourth if they keep making the same mistakes. Once again, Connor's wisdom guided us from beyond. We arranged a lunch with Jessica at a neutral restaurant. The meeting was awkward but surprisingly genuine. Jessica made no excuses, answered Harper's direct questions honestly, and asked for nothing. I miss Uncle Connor, she said at one point, using the title she'd rarely employed when he was alive. I didn't appreciate him enough when he was here, Harper replied. Jessica flinched but didn't deflect. Yes, and I regret that deeply. Harper studied her aunt with that penetrating gaze that reminded me so much of Connor. Did you know he invited you to my school play 3 times and you always said you were too busy? Jessica nodded, eyes downcast. I promise I'll watch every minute of your next one, As April approached, marking 1 year since Connor's death, we planned a memorial gathering at our home. Connor's parents, his friends, colleagues, and clients all confirmed attendance. After much discussion with Harper, we extended an invitation to Jessica alone. "Not my parents," Harper insisted. "Are you sure about excluding your grandparents?" Dr. Bennett asked during our session. "It's my choice entirely, but I want to make sure it's a considered one," I explained. "They've made no effort to apologize or change. Jessica, at least, is doing the work to understand her behavior and change it." The anniversary gathering was everything Connor would have loved: intimate, filled with good food, meaningful conversation, and even moments of laughter amidst the tears. Harper had prepared a speech that left everyone emotional. "My daddy Connor taught me 3 important things," she began, standing tall despite her nervousness. "First, he taught me that being smart isn't just about knowing facts, but about understanding people. Second, he taught me that family is about what you do, not what you say. And third, he taught me that love doesn't go away just because someone does." Jessica, sitting quietly at the edge of the gathering, wiped tears throughout Harper's speech. Afterwards, she approached us hesitantly. "Thank you for including me today," she said. "I know I haven't earned it yet." "You're making progress," I acknowledged. "That matters." With the milestone of the first year behind us, life settled into a new normal. I returned to full-time work at my architecture firm, finding healing in creating spaces for others while honoring Connor's influence in my designs. Harper thrived in school, her resilience inspiring her teachers and classmates. The Connor Walsh Lighthouse Foundation awarded its first grants to children who had lost parents, with Harper personally signing each award letter. 2 weeks after the anniversary, the foundation hosted its inaugural community event, a lighthouse-themed benefit walk along the lakefront. As Harper and I led the final lap, hand in hand, I realized that grief had reshaped our world, but it no longer defined us. We had built something new around the Connor-shaped hole in our lives, not filling it, but acknowledging it, and in doing so, finding our way forward together. Gathering, Maxwell contacted me with an unexpected development. "Connor left one final letter, with instructions to deliver it to you on the first anniversary of his death. He explained, handing me an envelope, that he asked you to read it privately." That evening, after Harper was asleep, I opened Connor's final message with trembling hands. "My beloved Ethan. If you're reading this, you've made it through the first year without me. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there with you, holding your hand through the hardest days, celebrating the small victories, watching our amazing daughter continue to grow. I hope the provisions I made have given you practical support, though I know they can't touch the emotional void my absence has created. I hope my parents have been the steady presence they've always been. I hope you found ways to keep me present in Harper's life without letting grief overshadow her childhood. Most of all, I hope you're beginning to find moments of joy again. You deserve joy, Ethan. You deserve love and laughter and hate. Please don't dimmer your brilliant spirit out of loyalty to my memory. If my death has created any ruptures in your family relationships, I hope healing has been possible where healthy. I've always believed that family should be a source of support, not stress. Sometimes that means creating boundaries. Sometimes it means creating distance. And sometimes it means creating new definitions of family altogether. Whatever shape your life has taken now, know that my love for you and Harper transcends this physical separation. The best parts of me live on in both of you, in Harper's strategic mind, in your compassionate heart, in the home and life we built together. Move forward, my love, not away from what we had, but carrying it with you into whatever comes next. I am with you always. All my love, eternally. Connor. I read his words through tears, feeling his presence more strongly than I had in months. The next morning, I shared the letter with Harper, who traced her fingers over Connor's handwriting with reverent care. "He knew we'd be okay," she said with certainty. "He made sure of it." The following weekend, Harper and I visited Connor's favorite spot, a secluded bench overlooking the Charles River, where he'd often go to think through difficult decisions or just enjoy a peaceful moment. We brought a picnic lunch and his favorite dessert, sharing memories and moments of silence equally. "Dad?" Harper asked as we packed up to leave. "Yes, sweetie?" "I think Daddy Connor was right about family being something you build, not just something you're born into." "I think so too. We've built a good one, haven't we, even with the hard parts?" I looked at my wise, resilient daughter and felt Connor's presence in her insightful eyes. "Yes, we have a very good one." As we walked back to the car, Harper reached for my hand, something she'd been doing less as she asserted her independence. This simple gesture felt like a bridge between our past and our future, between what we'd lost and what we'd gained. "Love doesn't end," she said, echoing Connor's frequent assurance. "It just changes shape." In that moment, I understood that while grief would always be part of our landscape, it would never again be the entirety of it. Connor had given us not just financial security but an emotional foundation strong enough to weather even the most devastating storm. He had taught us that family is defined not by obligation or blood but by love demonstrated through consistent presence and support. He had shown us, through his careful planning and through Harper's unexpected wisdom, that sometimes the most profound response to betrayal isn't retribution but rebuilding, constructing something stronger and more authentic from the painful lessons of loss. Has your family ever chosen convenience over compassion when you needed them most? Have you experienced the pain of realizing someone's love was conditional? Or have you been blessed with people who show up consistently through life's hardest moments? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about our journey of healing and rebuilding. Thank you for listening, and remember, family is defined by actions, not just blood. Take care of each other out.